This reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It is our reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast. And our experience here is but a blip in the cosmic timeline. This flame is our promise that in our smallness and our short time on this earth, that we live intently and deeply, with love for one another, with honesty and integrity, to be guided by rational thought and critical thinking, and with a sense of shared responsibility. For as the late astronomer Carl Sagan reminded us, this pale blue dot is the only home we've ever known. We bid you welcome. We do not ask what you believe or expect you to think a certain way, but only that you try to live a kindly, helpful life with the dignity proper to a human being. Welcome all who believe that religion is wider than any sect and deeper than any set of opinions. Welcome all who might find in our friendship strength and encouragement for daily living. Good morning. And welcome to the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. My name is Mark Petrie, and I'm chair of the fundraising committee at UUCF. This morning, we are fortunate to have guest speaker Peggi Tabor with us. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors today. After the service, we invite you to gather at the back of the meeting house and outside. When indoors, we are observing COVID precautions and wearing masks regardless of vaccination status. Religious education classes are being held in the social hall during the service, and I believe they're outside planting things today as well. An usher can direct you to that location if needed. Joys and sorrows can be shared later in the service at the microphone by filling out a blue card found in the pews or by texting me. My phone number is on page 2 in the order of service, and please include your name in the text so I can identify you. As we begin our service, we remember that our UU principles begin with our pledge to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome into our community people of all races, sexual orientation, gender identities, and belief systems. Please join me in stating our mission, which is printed on your order of service. We seek answers everywhere, include everyone, and live with compassion. We just have a few announcements for you today. First, I'm going to be handing around our religious education teacher sign-up again. You know how this works, most of you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Liz. We really appreciate your volunteering your time and your help in educating our kids. We really appreciate it. And Tom, I believe you have a message from the membership committee.
Good morning. Just on behalf of the of Hope and the membership committee, thank you first of all for all of you who were walking with us yesterday at the parade. It was a blast. We had a bunch of people there compared to past years, and hopefully we'll get more people out there next time. And they're not here today, I don't think, but the churches did a fantastic job of hosting a party for us afterwards. Speaking of parties. This being time of year, people are not around church as much as normal. It's a little bit in advance, but August 7th is our church picnic right after church. It's going to be up the street. It's about 4 or 5 miles away from here. Hopefully you will all get that on your calendar. We'll also mention to guests, people who have been coming for a while, come on up to the party. You don't need to be a member. We'd love to see you there and give us a chance to get to know you better. So, anything you want to add?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I do a lot of stuff around here. We need more volunteers to run sound. So if you have any inkling into wanting to figure out how all these things happen to, on Sundays, by all means, let me know, and you can help run sound for us. Also, the old media cabinet in the back there, we no longer need it. If anybody wants it, you're welcome to it. So just let me know, and we'll clean it out for you, and you can take it away. Otherwise, it's going to get donated. So, thanks.
Jamie, you can certainly ask Kelly about that. If you have something out on the lawn, she's going to snatch it up, I'm sure. Okay, one more announcement. I mentioned I'm with the fundraising committee. We have something fun going on, Fun Food Fundraising Friday, we're calling it. I don't know. I've had some other F's in there too, but it was a lot of, okay. Anyway, so let's see. There's July 29th is a Friday, and with Panera, we have a special event set up for where they will donate 20% of the proceeds that they receive from folks from our church that will go and buy stuff from them. So it is a particular location. It's the one up here on 12 Mile Road. Okay, you have to go to this particular location, and you have to use this particular code, Fun4U. You can use that online or in person. If you go in person, you have to go between 4 and 8 p.m. But if you do it online, you can do it anytime during the day. So there's more of these back here at the back of the church on the little stool there. Just pick this up if you're free to join us Friday the 29th. And we're going to also come back here to the church and set some tables up in the parking lot and get together at 7 o'clock. So more information about that is in the email blast as well. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. And another way that you can even get more than 20% for the church is if you use the Raise Right app, and that will give us another 8%, so we can really rob them. All right. Terrific. Please rise as you are willing and able for our first hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Good morning. The first reading comes from a Stoic philosopher by the name of Epictetus. Epictetus was born a slave in Rome during the time of Emperor Nero. Very bad time to be a slave in Rome. And so he really exemplified the first law of Stoic philosophy, which is only be concerned with the things that are under our control. He said, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals, not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to the uncontrollable externals, but within myself, for the choices which are my own." He went on to explain this a bit. He said, "We control our opinions, our choices, our desires and aversions, and in a word, everything of our own doing. We don't really control our body or the property we have, or our reputation, our position, and in a word, anything not completely of our doing." So this is the basic tenet of Stoic philosophy, and it's the idea that we'll be exploring today.
After a career in marketing with the Xerox Corporation, during which she designed and delivered training programs to Xerox managers, both in the US and abroad, Dr. Tabor traveled to Africa with the US Peace Corps. There, living in a remote village, she helped villagers start micro businesses and worked with traditional healers to battle the AIDS pandemic. Dr. Tabor is a certified integrated wellness coach. She holds an MBA in marketing and communications, a master's degree in metaphysical science, and a PhD in philosophy. Please welcome our speaker, Peggi Tabor.
I tested myself this morning. That's the only reason I'm taking off the mask. I'm so happy to be here today. You know, I've given talks here several times, but it's been a few years, and I've always really enjoyed this congregation. You're so open-minded. It says so much for you that you're willing to listen to a talk on a Hellenistic philosophy, 2,500 years old, and see if there's any relevance in it that you might be able to apply to your life today. Stoicism is so misunderstood. One thinks of Dr. Spock, no emotion, no reaction, very little joy, just kind of a grin and bear it sort of connotation. Well, the Stoics weren't like that at all. In fact, let me just move this a bit. They were known to be really joyful people. And the whole purpose of Stoicism is to allow us to live the best possible life. And the Stoics thought that the most important part of living a the best possible life would be to have very strong moral excellence as our ultimate goal. And I know that that is true absolutely of Unitarian beliefs as well. So I think that as I tell you what the Stoics do, you're going to say, I'm a Stoic, and you are. There's so much in common in these great ways of thinking about how to live a life. And although Stoicism is definitely a definite philosophy, it also has a very broad psychological component in it as well. The Stoics were some of the earliest psychological they tried to understand the workings of the human mind and deliver methods of working with our human mind to make life easier, particularly in really rough situations. It's very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy and to mindfulness meditation, which are very popular practices in today's society. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, helps people identify destructive patterns in their thoughts and behaviors so that they can, over time, direct and influence their own thoughts into a more positive direction. That's what the Stoic meditations and exercises teach us to do. And of course, mindfulness takes away worry about the past or guilt about the past or worry about the future. And we find, in practicing mindfulness that the present moment is a very good place to be, no matter what. And the Stoics gave us ways to get to that present moment. So much of today's contemporary psychology is taken right out of the Stoic handbook. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, the Stoics wrote those habits down 2,000 years ago. And Alcoholics Anonymous, their acceptance prayer, which is, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is the very first law of Stoic philosophy. If you read the Stoics, and there was a handout mailed to you, and there's copies of it at the back of the church as well, but if you read the Stoics, you'll find people that are very joyous and tranquil, we'll be talking about some of them, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and particularly Epictetus. They all said, our goal in life is to live the very best life. So as the wonderful great poet Mary Oliver said, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Here's how the Stoics would advise you to deal with that question. These are basic teaching. Yep. I love your new system. It's really cool. Wow, it looks better. Last time I was here, I think we were on a screen. I love this. Anyway, the Stoics believe that happiness and freedom really begin with understanding this certain principle. Some things are under our control and some things are not. So always acting on this knowledge will really allow inner tranquility and outer effectiveness. So inside our control, our aspirations, desires, our opinions, the things that we allow to repel us. Most importantly, under our control, is how we choose to react to the world around us. Outside of our control are things like our race, our gender, who our parents were, how others think about us to a certain extent, and how others behave. Can you even imagine the freedom involved in just letting go of our concern for how others behave? It would just be nirvana. So basic to the Stoic approach to life is really training ourselves how to respond to those things that are in our control and how to focus our attention on those things that are within our control and let go of anything that is not. For example, the pandemic. I mean, we cannot control this virus, but we can control our reaction to it. We can wear a mask, we can get our vaccinations, we can decide that we're going to social distance. You can just send away. I test myself before I go into any public arena. We have control over this. So focusing on what is under their control, the Stoics tried to deal with the world as it is, at the same time always pursuing self-improvement. And they did this by really looking at 4 cardinal virtues. There it is. I'm just so happy about that. The first cardinal virtue is practical wisdom, and this is the ability to navigate really complex situations in a logical and informed and calm manner. This is the virtue that we would apply to our thought process, how you choose to think about things. And according to the Stoics, we should use reason and logic, never fear, resentment, or anger. The second of the Stoic cardinal virtues is temperance. And enough said, moderation in all things. We all know that this is a virtue, cardinal or not. And the third is justice. Treating others with fairness, even when they've done wrong. Marcus Aurelius was a great Stoic writer and philosopher. He was emperor of Rome. At that time, if you did something the emperor didn't like, the consequences could be horribly dire. Marcus Aurelius did not do that. He taught and practiced treating justice always with compassion and kindness. One of the things that was actually one of his buddies, Seneca said it, he said, "We are all bad men, living amongst bad men. The least we can do is learn how to get along with each other." And Marcus Aurelius ruled that way. He wrote a book called Meditations. It was never going to be published. It was the way he thought about things at night, to give him an idea on how to be better, how to be a better ruler. He's considered one of the 5 great Roman emperors. So his book Meditations is the book that Nelson Mandela was given when he was a prisoner for 27 years in Robben Island. And it's widely believed, and he said that this is true, that it was the teachings of Marcus Aurelius that helped him set up the African National Conference in such a way that they responded to apartheid with the Reconciliation Council. No revenge. No getting back for the bad, just understanding, compassion, kindness, all the things that are written on your walls is what Marcus Aurelius taught as a leader. So part of the Stoic commitment to the virtue of justice is civic duty. The Stoics believe that it's our absolute responsibility as a community to participate in that community. If you see something that is wrong, turn towards it and do what you can to be part of the solution. The Stoics encouraged political involvement, but never political bellyaching. Sitting on the sidelines and complaining about things outside their control is anathema to a Stoic. And the fourth of the cardinal virtues is courage. And this is not just in extraordinary circumstances, but in really facing daily challenges with clarity and with integrity. A Stoic will ask herself, am I going to face this problem, or am I just going to turn away from it? Will I stand up for what I believe is right in this moment, or be rolled over? So The Stoics believe that these four cardinal virtues, practical wisdom, temperance, justice, and courage, that we can use them in every single situation that life presents us with. And they develop some psychological techniques to help us do exactly. Oh, I went too fast. This is good, but I'm still kind of clumsy about it. So here's some of the psychological techniques of the Stoics. The first, and the one that gets the most press, is negative visualization. It's premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. There's several reasons why we should perhaps think about bad things that could happen to us. One is to help prevent them. We could, for instance, this is a way a Stoic would use negative visualization. You think about, somebody might break into my house. Now, you're not worried about someone breaking into your house. You're just imagining, if someone was going to break into my house, how would they do it? Then you use your practical wisdom cardinal virtue and design the best alarm system or the best protection of yourself against this. This is one of the ways the Stoics mean what they mean about negative visualization. Seneca was an interesting guy. He was, when Nero, the worst emperor, was a kid, Seneca was his tutor. When Nero grew up, Seneca had the thankless, horrible job of being one of his primary advisors. He was exiled twice by Nero. He finally was told he had to commit suicide, which he did in a very Stoic way. At any rate, Seneca was great on how to deal with difficult situations. He said that a second reason for thinking about bad things that could happen to us is that bad things absolutely will happen to us. Here's a quote. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived them coming beforehand. Misfortune weighs most heavily upon those who expect nothing but good fortune. And Epictetus, of course, agreed. Epictetus reminds us that all things are perishable. If you have a cup that you love to drink in, a Stoic way to look at that is to imagine this cup is already broken, or someone's stolen your cup. That way, that brings us right into the present. So when you're drinking from that cup, you can really enjoy and love the cup and get absolute pleasure from owning it, because you know you won't own it forever. He says everything is perishable. So another negative visualization technique is, I love this one, it's called the last time meditation. And this means that you just pause in the moment of whatever you're doing, and you imagine that this is the last time you're ever going to get to do it. The reality is that there is going to be a last time for every single thing that we do. So, for example, you get a phone call from your child or your grandchild. You turn off the TV, you set your phone down, and you listen to that voice. What if it's the last time you hear that voice? You respond with the most focused attention that you can on that moment, knowing that this moment is precious because it's going to be gone. That child's going to be gone, or you're going to be gone. Sounds a little negative, but the intention is always to enjoy what you have. Two great ways to be rich. You can go out and buy everything you want, thing after thing after thing. And our human psychology says that there's this thing called hedonic adaptation. Remember your first cell phone? How happy would you be with that today? It's always get the latest one, the latest one, the latest one. Okay, that's one way of being rich. The other way to be really rich is to learn to love the things that you already have. Look at everything you have in your life that you really like and just take great pleasure in it. You'll save so much money. So, another thing that the Stoics really spent a lot of time thinking about and talking about was, how do we deal with grief? grief is a real devastating emotion that can be ameliorated by negative visualization techniques. Seneca wrote this advice about grief when we suffer the loss of a loved one. He said, we should love all our dear ones, but always with the thought that we have no promise that we may keep them forever. So, while enjoying the companionship of loved ones, we should periodically stop and reflect upon the fact that this relationship is going to come to an end. The belief that the Stoics don't grieve is highly mistaken. An emotion like grief is an absolute human reflex. It is the underside of love. If you love something and lose it, the automatic human reaction is to grieve. But the Stoics would say the thing to do is to limit our grief using our wisdom, using practical wisdom in every way that we can. In advice to a friend who had lost his brother, Seneca said, "Let your tears flow, but let them also cease. Let deepest sighs be drawn from your breast, but let them also find an end." Although it's impossible to eliminate grief from our lives, it is possible, Seneca thinks, to take steps to minimize the amount of grief we will experience over a lifetime. The Stoics' primary grief-limiting strategy was to engage in various types of negative visualization. If we contemplate the deaths of those we love, we'll certainly take full advantage of our relationship with them, and then we won't, if they do leave us, find ourselves filled with regrets about all the things we should have done with them and for all the times we could have enjoyed their company. So in advice, Seneca had this great friend who she lost her adult son, and she told him that 3 years after he passed, she felt the same horrible grief that she felt at his funeral. And Seneca said that rather than spending her days thinking bitterly of the happiness she had been deprived of by his death, she should think of how much worse off she'd be if she had never had that son, if she had never enjoyed his company. This type of visualization will replace the feelings of regret with having lost something with feelings of gratitude for having once had it. Seneca said we should use practical wisdom to help us avoid excessive grief. He says to realize that our lost loved one would not want us to suffer this grief, and we can honor them. We can do good for them in honoring their wishes that we continue living a joyful and tranquil life. The Stoics believed we should live absolutely every single day as if it were our last. When I first read this, I said, "Hooray, bring on the hot fudge sundaes." But that's not what the Stoics meant, darn it. What they meant was, don't change your regimen of what you're going to do that day, but just perform every task as though this is your last day. The goal here is not to change the activities, but just to change the state of mind that we're in when we do those activities. Marcus Aurelius said great stuff. They all have a lot to say about death. It's all going to happen to us, and the Stoics didn't back away from thinking about it. They tried to think about it in a way that was going to make it, kind of a more pleasant transition. He said, this is Marcus Aurelius, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now, take up what's left and live it properly." I thought, gee, pretty good information. So a few times every day, a Stoic will pause in their enjoyment of life and think about how it could all be taken away. This brings us right into the moment. So it brings us right into a mindfulness moment filled with both gratitude and joy. So another thing that the Stoics were very concerned that they spent time thinking about it is the whole idea of control. And Epictetus was the big guy on this. Some things are in our control, some things are not. However, current Stoic philosophers are thinking a little bit differently about this than the Hellenistic philosophers. They're saying that, well, some things are sort of in our control, like how other people think of us. It's sort of under our control. Our behavior determines somewhat. Okay, how about like winning a race? The Stoics would say, and Stoicism, by the way, is practiced by many, many professional and Olympic athletes. Epictetus's book went through the, I think, 1999 Olympic Village, and all of a sudden, all the Olympic athletes are reading the Stoics, because how do you be an Olympic athlete and not let losing absolutely devastate you? Well, the Stoic approach to this is to learn to internalize your goals. So you can train for a race as well as you can. You can run the race to the best of your ability. You cannot control who's going to win that race. You might trip and fall. Somebody might just be faster than you. So how do you put so much effort into something without being devastated when you don't achieve the goal? It's changing your goal. It's internalizing the goal to the things over which you have complete control, which is training for the race and running your best race. That's the way athletes can be happy even if they don't win the race. If your goal is to have a spouse that loves you, I told this to my spouse, and he said, "Oh, really?" Okay. It says, if your goal is to have your spouse love you, the internalizing technique will be to act toward your spouse in ways that are lovable. Guess whose behavior I was pointing to at the moment? Okay. Do you want to be a writer? Then write. Write stuff that you love. Don't send it out. Send it out to publishers. Don't worry about rejection notice. John Grisham was rejected by 25 publishers before he got his first novel written. J.K. Rowling's 12 publishers before she found the success with her Harry Potter books. So this idea of control is so powerful. It really enables complete psychological freedom, not spending any of our precious time worrying about things we can't do anything about, and instead enjoying this remarkable life we've been given is a really good, and it's a real Stoic line. So the bottom line is it's all about how we choose to think about things, and we can't talk about thinking about things without talking about meditation. Stoic meditation is really different than Hindu and Buddhist meditation. The Stoics advised a very specific type. They taught their followers to every night do kind of a review of the day. Did something disrupt your tranquility? Did you become angry? If you screwed up during the day, many other religions call this examine your conscience. If you screwed up during the day, then think of how you could relive that moment and do it better. Now, neuroscientists call this neuro-linguistic programming. It's taking ideas and planting them in the prefrontal cortex, making pathways of this idea to the prefrontal cortex of your brain, so that the next time you're actually presented with a situation where you might respond with anger or fear or anxiety, your brain is already wired to give a response based on the virtues, based on wisdom or justice or whatever, temperance. And the Stoics said every night you should do this. And don't just think about ways that you have failed, but also think about, did you practice the Stoic virtue, the Stoic exercises? Self-control is a great Stoic exercise. Did you pass up the second glass of wine at dinner? Did you not have dessert? Just Stoics practiced little slight uncomfortable situations just to strengthen their willpower. They believed that willpower is a mental muscle. In order to be strengthened, It has to be exercised. So the Stoics would say, did I do any absolutely mindful works of compassion or kindness today? Every single day, a Stoic makes it as a Stoic challenge to do all of those things. So this nightly checklist, did you practice the Stoic virtues during the day? Did we exercise willpower? Did we take time to distinguish mentally, purposefully distinguish between things that were under our control and not under our control? And our last thought of this evening meditation should be just ways, practice mental ways that you could do it better, concrete actions to which you can make a mental commitment. And if possible, you could write this down in a journal. You might be the next Marcus Aurelius. He's sold a lot of copies. So that's how a Stoic ends their day. The question is, is it worth it? Is it worth giving a try? Practicing Stoicism takes effort. Using negative visualization takes effort and focus and commitment. And so, of course, does practicing little self-denials and exercising our willpower to do things that are uncomfortable, even though, we know they're good for us, like, saying, oh, will I do my walk today? It's kind of cold out there. Take that on as your Stoic challenge. You will do that walk today. But there's significant awards to practicing these techniques. You'll experience fewer negative emotions, for sure. You will experience fewer episodes of anger, fear, grief, disappointment, and anxiety. And because of this, you'll experience a much deeper sense of tranquility and peace. And along with experiencing fewer negative emotions, you will greatly expand your ability to experience one particular positive emotion, and that is delight in the world around you and delight in those things that you have. The things that you have in your life, the friends that you have in your life, the community like this church that you have in your life. So in practicing Stoicism, you'll expand your zone of comfort, you'll become more resilient, and so really that's about it. That's Stoicism in a nutshell. If you want to pursue the topic further, those readings I've read, a lot of books on Stoicism, and those are my 4 favorites, and I also listed a bunch of quotes from the Stoic philosophers that I think you might find both amusing and perhaps helpful. So that's it. Give it a try and see if maybe Stoicism is perhaps the perfect pandemic philosophy for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tabor. And I'm sure we all enjoyed that as if it were the last time that you would speak for us, but I'm sure it will not be. I'm sure it will not be. As we move on to our offering today, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Thank you, Diana. And just a quick note about our visitors today. If you're visiting us for the first time, and if you're comfortable doing so, we invite you to please stand and tell us where you're from and how you heard about us. We'd like to meet you. Anybody new today? Yes. Hello. Well, welcome, Nick. Okay. We're glad to have you. Thank you. Anyone else new today? All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, we do have somebody. Excellent. Welcome. Thank you both. And we'll move on to our celebration of joys and sharing of sorrows. A perfect heart is one that has known love and loss, joy and sorrow. The perfect heart is one that has been shared. As joys and sorrows of our community are shared, please direct your energy, prayers, and meditations as a gift of compassion and strength. And would anybody like to come up to the microphone to share anything today? sharing. Please rise as you are willing and able for our second hymn, number 318, We Would Be One.
So Epictetus, that wonderful guy who put up with so much difficulty, he said, now is the time to get serious about living your ideals. How long can you put off who you really want to be? Your nobler self cannot wait any longer. And Marcus Aurelius followed that with true good fortune is what you make for yourself. Good fortune, good character, good intentions, and good actions. So this psychic dynamite that we're looking for, unfortunately, it's just not handed to us. We aren't born resilient or confident. You know, we have to earn it, so we have to make it, and that is only possible in difficult times like these. It can only be found like now, when we're alone, when we're forced to adapt and to adjust to circumstances that are outside our control. The obstacles we face are the opportunities. Marcus Aurelius also said, pass through this brief patch of time in harmony with nature and come to your final resting place gracefully, just as a ripened olive might drop, praising the earth that nourished it and grateful to the tree that gave it growth. May you all find in your hearts and minds the courage and fortitude it takes to get through these difficult times and to thrive, both enjoying joy and tranquility. Thank you.